All right,
We're back.
again.
We're back.
Yeah,
All right.
sorry about that, guys. You know what? We were just talking about it, Bill and myself, and we realized that we shouldn't have gone in. I mean, we should always test going into a shop
Right.
before we live stream there.
If there's signal.
Yeah,
Yep.
because the walls in that building turned out to be just a little too thick, and that's why we lost you guys. I think that we're just gonna hang out here just for 1 second until I get hey, what's up from anybody who's reconnected in either Facebook or YouTube, and then this is gonna end up making 2 different video files because we're starting a brand new. We're gonna end up. It just means that this video itself is gonna probably take 24 to 48 hours. So I'm going to want to marry together the first part that we've already done with the part that we've got coming up still for you guys. So once you have gotten back on the signal feed and you're out there again, I'm looking for you, Shannon. I'm looking for you, Folly Dude. You know,
If they're on Facebook, does it just go blank and then the signal will come back?
It could be that they're watching and then all of a sudden it's just spinning and spinning and spinning, saying waiting for feed.
Right.
The worst is that there's a complete chance that people could be watching that thing just spinning and spinning and spinning, and then
it won't come back.
And then unless they refresh their browser,
Right.
it won't come back again, and they won't know.
Nobody's.
God, it breaks my heart.
Nobody's telling us
I know
that they see us.
makes me
There we
sad.
go.
Oh,
Thank you.
oh, gosh, you guys are back. Honestly, it's like nothing breaks my heart more.
We're
Nothing
learning.
breaks my heart,
We're
but
learning. We're
Yeah.
learning.
So if you're just coming back in with us now, thank you, Michaela, thank you, Eduarda, thank you, Joel, for saying that we're back. If we lose you because we have a signal breakage, we're going to come back again. And then at the end, any little bits and pieces of video, we're going to marry them together, okay? So, yeah, there's Folly Dude. Honestly, Folly Dude, we're not going to do any more of these unless you're watching. So we need you. Folly Dude is like Folly Dude and Shannon. Let's be honest, and Alba. If Alba shows up later on, like these are the people who, in a group, when we're doing like a live tour for real human beings, like in front of us, they're the nodders. Like, oh yeah, okay.
Oh,
okay.
cool.
And you look to the nodders
Yeah.
because they get it, and then like when they stop nodding, you're like, all right, something went wrong. I had to repeat it. So if we don't see you guys, then we know that we're doing something wrong. Thank you, Joel. You're the legend. You're the people back again.
Ready. Good deal.
Thanks, guys, for your patience.
We're going to film this house right here. We're going to turn that way.
All right.
Now, when Barbara Streisand came to town, she rented this house here on a long-term basis, and she signed a contract and immediately then put up an 8-foot tall black extension fence all the way around the house. And it's got a nice swimming pool in the backyard. So all the locals are wondering, what the heck is going on here? And so then she got the phone number for the Brigadier General at the Marine Corps Air Station. You've heard the jets flying over here, I think. She called me and said, sir, I'm in town filming a movie. These jets flying over all the time are awfully noisy. What can you do about it? And he said, well, ma'am, exactly where are you located? So I'm at the corner of North and New Street in the Point, downtown Beaufort. Next morning, 6 o'clock sharp, double jet flyover right over top of the house. So to this day, there's a sign out at the Marine Corps Air Station. On the right side, it says, I call it the Barbara Streisand sign.
There it is.
This house on the right here was finished in 1776, and so the owners like to put out lots and lots of American flags every year for the 4th of July.
Oh, wow, because it's
The year of our independence, and so you'll see that's just a few of the flags left from last 4th of July, and they literally have tens of thousands of American flags in their yard. Normally, they also have the Betsy Ross flag with the circle of stars up on the front porch there, but they don't have that up today. But finished in 1776.
Gosh, we're having a much nicer day today with the weather, huh? Than our last tour.
No rain today. That was quite a lot of rain. I didn't realize I was wet till the very end.
You really get a feeling on this journey today on all the Caribbean colors
Yeah.
that are also in the buildings here.
Yep, exactly. We walked down this street, Craven Street, the other day, and this is our little Victorian row of houses, built between the late 1860s.
Post me on YouTube! Post me on YouTube!
You're on YouTube right now. You're on YouTube right now. Everybody wants to be an influencer.
Look at that. Look at that. So this is our little Victorian row of houses. Now this building on the far left here, it's a little brick building, is where a scene from the movie Something to Talk About with Julia Roberts was filmed. You'll see the three curves on the front of the building. It used to be a firehouse. And during the filming of the movie, the scene in the movie, now Something to Talk About, she stands up in the Savannah Women's Club and says, okay, who here has not slept with my husband, Dennis Quaid? During the filming, and she was in this building when she was finding out that he was cheating on her, she asked for a backdoor entrance into the Beaufort County Library, and she wanted to be able to sneak into the library and out the door before she had to answer the reporter's questions. Why in the world did you marry Lyle Lovett? I don't think she ever answered the question. She just divorced him a year or two later. This is a restaurant I mentioned the other day, Wren. They have a Carolina salad here that has fried green tomatoes and goat cheese. It's really, really good. Now, as we come to the red light here, we're going to take a left, but straight up across is the famous bridge in the movie world. This is the movie, or the bridge, where Forrest Gump was near the end of his cross-country run. Now, they put a Mississippi River sign up at the top of the bridge. They have the highway department put a sign up there, and they left it up for several weeks. So you can imagine people were a little bit confused for a while, because it's not the Mississippi River, it's the Beaufort River, part of the Intracoastal Waterway. And out after this bridge crosses the Ladies Island. The next bridge is Challen Creek Bridge, and that's where Forrest Gump started the cross-country run before he grew the beard. Once he grew the beard, the runner in real life wasn't Tom Hanks doing the rest of the running scenes. It turns out it was his younger brother Jim Hanks did all the running scenes. He was the runner in the family. I told that to some women on a tour one day, and one woman said, "I knew it. The runner's legs are longer than Tom's legs." So she checked out the legs for sure. Now this is not a drawbridge. This is called a swing bridge, and it actually has 4 large tires underneath it, and it rotates around, rolls around, creating 2 large channels wide enough for pre-COVID. We have a cruise ship here from the American Cruise Line that comes into town and goes right through the center of it there, and it's a 100-passenger cruise ship from American Cruise Lines. So it's a very the bridge here is the only time you'll ever catch a traffic jam in Beaufort, because there really aren't enough cars here. But when the bridge opens to let boats go through, and it does it at the top of the hour and the bottom of the hour, and also if a commercial boat like a shrimp boat comes through, it'll open on demand for the shrimp boat. And so you could hit this bridge 2 or 3 times in the same hour sometimes.
Wow.
The cannon here they found deep down in the river here, and so they just went ahead and perched it here.
Do you know when that cannon would have been from?
I've heard Revolutionary War, but I don't have any more details on it. Now this house from the movie Prince of Tides. This is the Louis Reeve Sam's house, and built in 1852. And in the movie The Prince of Tides, this house was the house of Nick Nolte's mother. At this point in the movie, he'd already been to New York to check on his sister Savannah. The book was written by Pat Conroy, and Savannah character was very autobiographical about Pat's older sister Carol. And so Nick Nolte had been to New York, had his check on his sister Savannah, and then he had his fling with Lowenstein, played by Barbara Streisand. And then when he was coming back to Charleston, in the book and the movie, this house here, the Louis Reeve Sam's house, was supposed to be in Charleston, and so he's coming here to give his mother an update on how Savannah was doing up in New York. Louis Reeve Sam's and his brother Bernard Barnwell Sam's, B.B. Sam's had the big house, the brick house with the pillars that we saw earlier in the tour. They owned all of Dawtaw Island, which is about a 10-minute ride from here out on St. Helena Island, and out there they had indigo, cotton, that kind of thing, but they also had 37 acres of orange groves with orange trees imported from France. And Louis Reeve Sam's brother had died by the time the Civil War started, but their offspring owned this house and owned Dawtaw Island at the time of the Great Skedaddle. I talked about yesterday the Battle of Port Royal. The Union came in, took over the Beaufort area November 7th, 1861, and so this was Union occupied, and all of the locals skedaddled out of town. So when the offspring of Louis Reeve Sam's left town, they carried with them orange seeds, with these from the orange trees on their plantation, and they walked 400 miles by foot to Merritt Island, Florida, planted the orange seeds there in what's now known as the Indian River citrus groves.
Oh wow!
So orange seeds came from France to Beaufort to Indian River down in Florida.
So cool. I focused in for a second there as well on the blue, the light blue above the piazzas.
Right.
Because Jim also mentioned that the hate blue.
Hate blue is an evil spirit.
Right.
And it looks like water or the sky, and that keeps the hates or evil spirits from coming in your house.
Awesome. Thank you.
So the other story about this house, a lot of people like to say that when they were doing the Great Skedaddle, they were throwing their luggage off the top floor balcony, and that's what broke the marble staircase here. I wasn't here, can't prove it, but that's the local legend. And this is another step up to get in your horse carriage right here. It is a beautiful house. Another interesting thing about it, in the dining room on the right side of the first floor, when they were renovating it about 12 years ago, the owner noticed that there was a white medallion above the chandelier, and he had the painter take it down, paint remover to take all the white paint off, and underneath there were the carved impressions of the 18 fruits and vegetables that they grew out on their plantation. And so now right here is some cotton the owners like to plant every year, and behind there's a green thing on a stick. And by law in South Carolina, you have to have one of those to keep the boll weevil away. Now the boll weevil wiped out the cotton crop here in the South back in 1918. It was a bug that came up from Mexico. And so by law in the books in South Carolina, you've got this white top on it.
So this is literally the cotton that...
I'm not sure that it's just a variety of cotton.
Amazing.
I'll have to find out for future reference exactly what kind of cotton that is. And also the trees behind here are orange trees. They should be growing some oranges sometime in the next few months, usually in the spring.
Awesome. Hey, Bill, could you ask people just to check in real quick with us? I haven't had a comment in a little while.
Yeah, can everybody just let us know that they're still getting the feed and send us a comment and just let us know how things are going.
Let us know you're still there. That'd be awesome.
On the left here, this house just went on the market about 2 months ago. We call it locally the eyebrow house. Can you see the window up there?
Let me get the angle on it.
All four corners have that same window. So like I said, we call it the eyebrow house. And the house is built in the in the 1890s. It's a beautiful house, and it's not antebellum. It was built after the Civil War, so technically it would be Victorian, but it's more of the antebellum building style.
All right, cool.
You got a picture of that? And they also have the Haint blue or the Sky Carolina blue up on the porches there.
Yeah. The blue and the eyebrow.
The eyebrow house.
And Michaela, Folly Dude, and Rebecca all reached out to say they're watching.
Awesome, awesome. And now this house next, Upworth House, 1720. This is the oldest house in town.
Really?
A lot of people like to say that see if I can get it turned here, that the slots underneath on the foundation here were gun slots. Whether or not that's true is up for question. That's what a lot of people like to say here. Over here you have the Betsy Ross flag.
Coming around, I'm spinning. Yeah, there it is.
Port Republic Street. It's got some beautiful houses all up and down, but my favorite in-town garden house here in Beaufort is coming up on the right. It's the George Moss Stoney House, built in 1838. Has a beautiful fountain, beautiful trees. It's got a live oak over to the right. It's got a beautiful oak tree, live oak to the back there, and it's even got a couple elephants back there and a pineapple back in the garden. For me, it has kind of a Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil feel to it. And Savannah's only an hour away from here. Now in real life, Jim Williams, who was played in the movie by Kevin Spacey, came to Beaufort at the request of the Beaufort Women's Club because there was a house that was scheduled to be bulldozed. And so he he moved the house 3 blocks to a different location. I'll take you by there and show you the house that he put together. He also bought Tom B Plantation, named after Thomas B. Chaplin, out on St. Helena, one of the 55 plantations in the St. Helena district. And he renovated it. When you walk in the front door of the Tom B Plantation house, there's a round table there with a picture of the real life Jim Williams on there that looks spitting image of Kevin Spacey in the movie.
Wow.
But again, this is the George Moss Stony House, 1838. Got beautiful Spanish moss, and right here on Port Republic Street. And just when you get the vibe for midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil, I was driving around the corner here one day and took a look in this garden to the right here, and there's a statue of the Bird Girl. She was very famous. That's a the original Bird Girl was in the Bonaventure, and so many people were touching it that it was starting to crumble, and so they moved it inside the Telfair Museum. So you can still go see it at the Telfair Museum in Savannah. But
Cool.
Here is known as 3 to 4 feet of water around in the moat. What their house was going to be. Very, very lots of water here and nowhere for it to go very quickly. Now up here on the right, this is the castle. If you watch the house, and he also been used still there. What they called back Federal and East Street here, circa 1815, the Dr. Joseph Hazel House, one of the hospitals, and this is where the Massachusetts 54th soldiers would be brought from, and they fought up on Folly Beach and other places here around the South. And so this house was newly renovated about 2 years ago. And so it's in really great shape now. But it is a very beautiful house. And again, it was a hospital for the Massachusetts 54th.
Morton Jensen, hello back. And Hale, glad you made it back, Hale Horseman.
Good, good. Glad to have everybody back, we hope. Some beautiful antebellum homes here.
Hi there, have a nice day.
That was scheduled for the bulldozer, and they had a box. It was Jim Williams of Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil fame, and this is the house on the right here that he moved. A very large structure, moved it back in the early 1970s, and if not, it had been bulldozed. So we thank Jim Williams for keeping this house with us. I really like the fence. It's just a very interesting design on the fence there. I don't think I'd try crossing it. Going over the top there, you might get stabbed or something.
Yeah. I noticed that most of the fences are wooden fences.
A lot of them are wooden fences.
Is that the badge of honor thing, or is that?
And I was noticing that too about the badge of honor in the video that Jim did, that they melted down and that they rebuilt with wooden fences. I've not heard about the badge of honor being done here in town, but this area was held by the Union and never challenged by the Confederates. So it's. Yeah, once the Confederates did the Great Skedaddle, they didn't come back till after the Civil War was over. Across the street, building in the movie White Squall, sailing movie. I don't know if the sun will ruin your view, but this was used as a Greyhound bus station at the very beginning of the movie, and so they pulled a Greyhound bus up, had a Greyhound bus sign. So you can imagine people from around town were. Just a movie location, not an actual Greyhound bus station. So, Lord Carteret, there was another Lord Ashley Cooper, which both rivers in Charleston are named after. Lord Craven, they were 3 of the Lords Proprietors that the King of England gave the territory of Carolina, the Carolina colony to. And so we're on Carteret Street right now. And we're entering the campus of the University of South Carolina, Beaufort. This building on the right was the original Beaufort College building, 1795, and during the Freedmen's Bureau. Coming up to the performance, and this building here was actually in 3 movies. Now we use this building is the building where we had the Pat Condor in November, and also in February we usually have the Beaufort International Film Festival here. But this building was in 3 movies. The first one I talked earlier about. At the end of the movie, after she finds out her husband she gets advice from her grandmother to poison her husband, Dennis Quaid, not enough to kill him, but enough to make him pay, and that he would never cheat on her again. And also she wants to have a career, so she comes here to this building, was made into the School of Veterinary Medicine at the very end of the movie, so she comes here to get a vet degree and become a vet. The most popular movie, most famous movie filmed here, this in Forest Gump, this is the Gump Medical Center in Bayou La Batre, Alabama. And they pull up some ambulances here, nurses and doctors in white uniforms, had a ribbon cutting, and so it was the Gump Medical Center. When I said that one day, Bayou La Batre, I had this mother and daughter on the tour, and they started laughing hysterically. I said, "What is so funny?" They said, "We're from Bayou La Batre, Alabama, but until this moment, we didn't know where the Gump Medical Center was." So here they were. Now the most recent movie filmed here a couple years ago was called Stars Fell on Alabama, and it was filmed by my friend director V.W. Shake, and he comes every year to the Beaufort Film Festival and wanted to film a movie badly here in town, so he made Beaufort look like Alabama, and it just got picked up by the Goldwyn, I think it was Samuel Goldwyn's company, and released on Amazon back on January the 8th. And so you can go watch the movie, and there are lots of Beaufort locations in the movie that you can see in that movie. So it's a really neat thing to go back and watch the movie. For instance, down on Bay Street here and all over town, there are movie locations. But the most famous, this building was the Gump Medical Center, Forest Gump. Did anyone give any feedback on how the going over the bumps in the golf cart?
But it was really smooth as silk.
Cell phone. Here is the Bellamy Curve. Carteret Street changes names to Boundary Street. When they were looking to move to the decided this is the place for them. We're moving to Beaufort. So they bought a house a few doors down from me. But it's called Bellamy Curve. Again, it's part of the Beaufort River Intracoastal Waterway.
So beautiful.
I'm surprised we haven't had more jets flying over lately.
Dude, ask, what was the last movie that we were talking about again?
Stars Fell on Alabama. Available on Amazon since January the 8th. That's actually a movie that I bought because I want to go back and check it out over and over again. Now the director of VW had called me January of last year after they'd already finished filming most of the scenes, and he had seen my new Mercedes Sprinter van, black van, and they'd used a black van in the movie, but he wanted to fill in some scenes with a black van. So I went out to the movie location where they were filming some other scenes with a drone, and my job was to drive my van forward, back 7 times and drop off the stars to walk to their car, to the big truck. And unfortunately, just like Kevin Costner got cut out of The Big Chill, unfortunately my van never made the final cut of the movie, but VW promised me he'd give me credit at the end of the movie. So at the very, very end of the movie it says, special thanks to Beaufort Tours and Bill Reynolds.
That's great.
I have friends who have a house here in Beaufort, but they're from Bologna, Italy, and the next day after the movie was released, they sent me a screenshot saying, "Bill, we're here in Bologna, Italy, but we saw that the Beaufort Tours, Bill Reynolds got credit for helping out with the movie." So that was kind of cool. We're known around the world.
Totally.
So Beaufort being a hospital town, they started bringing the wounded Union soldiers here, 1862, and then officially in 1863, Abraham Lincoln declared the land straight ahead here behind the brick wall, we'll be there in a minute, as the Beaufort National Cemetery, on the same day as 9 other national cemeteries were created throughout the South. And so they started bringing the wounded Union soldiers to Beaufort. If they, some of them died, they'd bury them in the ground straight ahead here. Now, about 80% of Forest Gump was filmed in and around Beaufort. The shrimp boat scenes where he jumps off and sees Lieutenant Dan was filmed over on the bridge at Lucy Creek when you're heading over to Coosaw Island, and Lieutenant Dan was on the dock there. Then also the scene where all the shrimp boats get wiped out by the hurricane, and Forest and the Bubba Gump Shrimp Company had a monopoly. But there's another scene that was filmed down the road here we'll go see, and that's where Forrest is riding round and round on the snapper tractor. And it was filmed at the Basil Green Complex. As a matter of fact, I think I'll just show it to you from a distance here. We're going to turn into the National Cemetery now. And if you came here 10 years ago, all of these grave markers here are veterans buried here in the last 10 years. And we have 1 or 2 burials, it seems like, every day. So if you go back and watch the movie Forrest Gump, there's a scene where he's riding round and round on the snapper tractor. And if you want to go see the blue building that used to be out here, across the street is Basil Green Complex, where they filmed the snapper tractor scene, snapper lawnmower. And then there used to be a blue building back here that was National Guard Armory. Now, also in the movie, he played football for Bear Bryant. In the movie, it looked like he was mowing the practice field with the snapper. And then the next day, he played for Bear Bryant, which was obviously University of Alabama. But those scenes were filmed at Walterboro High School, about 45 minutes northwest of here. Now in the movie The Great Santini, this is where they had the burial scene for Robert Duvall when he died a hero. And they actually had the Marine Corps jets fly over. And they probably were F-18 Hornets back then. It was 1991. And it could have been F-16s, I suppose. And they did the missing man flyover formation where one of the jets flies off in the formation. Now when they have burials here, sometimes they'll have 7 soldiers with the guns out, and they'll fire 3 times for the 21 gun salute. Again, these are all veterans of Vietnam, Korea, and World War II that were buried here in the last 10 years. It's inside the original brick wall where we'll see the veterans who are buried during the Civil War, mostly Union. About 8,000 Union soldiers were buried here during the war. But it's beautiful. It's got lots of live oak trees, Spanish moss, and it's a beautiful cemetery. Now, if you look on all 4 corners here, where you're looking to the right here, you'll see these blocks. These blocks are unknown Union soldiers buried here during the Civil War, and they didn't know who they were, so they made them, they buried each one in their own separate block, and they each have a number on them. Now with DNA, they could probably figure out who they were or who they were related to, but at this point it'd be a very expensive proposition to do that. Now Pat Conroy's father wasn't so happy that his son killed him off in The Great Santini in the book, but when the movie came out, we're going to go ahead and walk back here and we'll check out Pat Conroy's father's gravesite. When the movie came out, Don Conroy, Pat's father, realized he was somewhat of a hero. And so he was told, he was telling a nurse he'd be the only person buried here twice. Once in the movie, and in real life he's buried right over here. We're going to cut through here a little bit. And so he was a veteran of in the Marine Corps, World War II, Korea, Vietnam.
Kayla says she's going to have to watch.
There are Forest Gump locations all over town. So these are all veterans buried here since the Civil War. I'll show you the Civil War Union markers later. But for any Pat Conroy fans out there, this is the final resting place of the Great Santini, Don Conroy, Pat's father.
Wow.
And as I mentioned, he served in World War II, Korea, Vietnam, and died back in 1998. His wife died in 1984, but they had been divorced by that point. And so it's almost coincidence that she's buried just a few rows over here. We'll go check out her grave marker. And her second husband was in the Navy and also fought in World War II, Korea, Vietnam. And so Pat's mother is buried here as well. Now Pat always the contrarian, decided he wanted to be buried, and he wasn't in the military anyway, so he couldn't have been buried here. But he is the only white person buried in an entire Gullah cemetery out on St. Helena Island. Wow. So this is the gravestone here of Frances M. Pete Conroy. The M is for Margaret. She went by Peg. And she died back in 1984.
Wow. Wait, but she also served? Or,
no, she did not serve. Her husband's name is on the back side here, Captain Egan.
Oh, okay.
And so they bury the husband and the spouse.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Spouse here.
Thank you for that.
And sometimes some children as well.
There's a question from Joel about how many people are interred here.
So there are 8,000 from the Civil War, and there are over 25,000 total buried here in the entire cemetery. Now we're going to walk down this way. This was a discovery I made a couple months ago. So I mentioned earlier Pat Conroy, in the little pink house we saw on the tour, wrote his first book, The Boo. The Boo was about Lieutenant Colonel Thomas Courvoisier. He was Commandant of Cadets at the Citadel, and when Pat found out, right after Pat graduated from the Citadel, that Lieutenant Colonel Courvoisier was demoted to being in charge of the laundry and the warehouse, Pat wrote his first book, The Boo, a collection of short stories. And this here, Thomas Nugent Courvoisier, Lieutenant Colonel, is the Boo. And so all these three major characters in Pat Conroy's life are all buried here in the National Cemetery. And so also, I mentioned Pat's first wife, Barbara. Her husband, who was killed in Vietnam as a fighter pilot, he's buried here as well. So, but Pat himself, he's buried out in the cemetery out on St. Helena Island. It's actually the Brick Baptist Church Cemetery.
It's hard to express the feeling here right now of how solemn it really is.
It's quiet, it's solemn. Quiet. A lot of people come to Beaufort, never come in the walls here, and it really is a unique place.
It's such a shame not to come and visit this space. And of course, I mean, and pay respects and homage to the people who so many people have made the ultimate sacrifice. And we'll see, and we'll walk back over to the golf cart. We'll see a little bit later on that they buried the Union soldiers state by state. And so there's a whole entire section of New York soldiers who gave their lives here, and Pennsylvania soldiers and Massachusetts soldiers. Joel asked any unmarked graves. Joel, those are basically what these are.
Unknown. These are unknown soldiers.
Yeah, those are the unknown
Union
soldiers.
And they're Union soldiers. All they have is the number. Now, one of the most interesting people buried here during World War II, there was a German U-boat that was captured up off of Cape Lookout, North Carolina, and when the Navy was bringing the U-boat prisoners back to Charleston, one of them died. So they brought him here to the National Cemetery and buried him here. And his grave marker only has his name, he was German, and the date of his death. They didn't even know his birth date. Didn't know anything about him.
That's quite strange, though, that Germany didn't ask for or didn't reclaim the body.
I agree.
Have him returned to Germany.
He's buried here. Very interesting.
Wow, thanks for that. That's really special.
Let's see, we'll go see a few more things here in the National Cemetery. Check the turning radius on the golf cart. I don't think we're going to make it. I really do enjoy giving tours in the golf cart, though, because you're still outside, but you can cover a lot more ground than on the regular walking tour. And it's also low to the ground, so a lot of people who can't get into the tour van can actually get in the golf cart pretty easily. So on all four corners here, they have these blocks or the unknown Union soldiers.
Jim asks, any Revolutionary War graves?
Not in this cemetery wasn't started until 1862.
Right. This was one of Lincoln's 4 or 5 big national cemeteries that he ordered, right?
Yeah. I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll go ahead and walk down here. This marker over here is extremely interesting. I was talking earlier about Folly Beach, and this is where they had the remains of about the 19 African Americans who fought with the Massachusetts 54th, and they had the reburial ceremony here in 1989.
So we are talking about the group of men who were kind of immortalized in the movie Glory.
Glory, exactly,
Okay.
exactly. And so yeah, Memorial Day, 1989, Governor of Massachusetts Dukakis and descendants of the African American Civil War volunteers of the 54th and 55th and the 5th Cavalry Regiment of Massachusetts, accompanied by distinguished citizens of the Commonwealth, came this day to Beaufort National Veterans Cemetery to honor the members of the Black 55th Massachusetts Regiment of Volunteer Infantry whose remains were found on Folly Beach, South Carolina in 1987 and reinterred this day with full military honors befitting American soldiers. How cool is that?
I don't have words for it. I have goosebumps and it's hard. I want to describe to the audience what it feels like right now to be here, and I can't adequately do it.
Mm-hmm. Lost their lives on Folly Island in the siege of Charleston during the winter encampment of November 1863 to February 1864 Civil War. So if anybody out there hasn't seen the movie Glory, I highly recommend it. My only complaint about the movie was that it was too short. I really, when it ended, I'm like, oh, that should have been a lot. They could have given a lot longer showing of the movie.
Definitely. Gosh, it's very powerful.
Well, we're walking through the unknown Union soldiers here again. They're all over the place.
Another part of the small story, after he'd run the blockade, after he'd escaped and arrived at the Union blockade, they also turned him to helping raise, Black African American soldiers, and he raised over 5,000 soldiers himself.
Right.
To those men to come, and many of them who, lost their lives shortly after having been made free.
Exactly. Yeah, Robert Smalls really, of anybody I can think of in American history, really did not get his due.
I think we should team together to start the petition for the Robert Smalls documentary movie, or something, because it needs to happen. It's such an amazing story.
So nowadays, instead of Denzel Washington, his son, I'm not sure if his name is like Michael David Washington, something like that. John David Washington is a huge actor and would be about the right age to play the part.
Right. 22,
So
23, 24.
we'll draft Denzel's son to play the part now. Somebody's got to fund the movie.
Folly Dude says the remains of those men were found about a mile from where he lives.
Oh, wow.
Right now. So
When I read about that, it was basically they were building or digging a foundation for a commercial building or something. It wasn't anything that they ever, they didn't think they would find. So that's pretty cool. Now, after the Civil War was over here on the left, this is where they buried some of the Confederate veterans after the war. So none of these Confederates were buried here during the war. And you'll see some of the grave markers will say Confederate Soldier or CSA for Confederate States of America. And even on Memorial Day here, they all get American flags. And back in December, we had wreaths across America, and all of the markers here get wreaths too. So it's a pretty interesting place. Now the gravestones of the Confederates, a lot of them are pointed, and the local story goes that whoever ordered them pointed so that they would be uncomfortable to sit upon, so that the Union veterans couldn't sit on them in a show of disrespect. Whether or not that's true, I've had somebody on a tour who said they went to an all-Confederate cemetery and all the markers were pointed like that. So that might have just been the style. All right, we're going to go around the corner here, and we're going to see we'll see the New York section and the Ohio section of the Union soldiers who were buried here during the Civil War. Quite a few, as a matter of fact. I mean, you've got 8,000 Union soldiers buried here. The taller gravestones are more recent, and then it's the sections like this one here on the right, and if you look on these stones here, you can see that they say New York, NY, at the bottom. So this entire section out here is all New York.
I gotta cast a shadow so you guys can see it.
And every grave marker has a sequential number on it. And so that was George Norton, Sergeant. That was his rank in New York. Henry Olson, New York. says Anthony, looks like Chloe, also from New York.
Yeah.
This whole section around here, more than 100 New Yorkers were buried here after dying in the battle. But look at these, the trees. They have cedar trees here as well as the live oak trees. Beautiful Spanish moss. And it just thrives on the trees. It has a very symbiotic relationship with the live oak trees here.
I was pleasantly surprised not to see like lots of the Confederate flags stuck into the ground around the Confederate graves, which in some other locations you'll have a lot of them kind of.
It happens it happens sometimes. We actually still in South Carolina celebrate Confederate Memorial Day. It's a state holiday where all state agencies are closed, and so sometimes people do put flags out here. But it's pretty. You don't see them much. Now this is the Ohio section here, and just lots and lots of Ohioans who gave their lives for our country.
And is it just New York and Ohio that would get broken out, or is it actually every state has its own section?
Every state. Massachusetts over here. Pennsylvania's back there.
Where's Connecticut?
To be honest, I don't know.
Oh, nutmeggers. Small state, but we're strong.
I actually asked the people here if they had a map with that on there, and they don't. So one day I'm just going to walk out here and figure out exactly where all the different sections are. We'll walk over here on the wall. So given that Abraham Lincoln declared this the Beaufort National Cemetery back in 1863, we have a copy of his Gettysburg Address. November 19th, 1863. And I'm kind of a math nerd, so it begins 407 years ago. Our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation. So 407 years, a score is 20 years, so that means 87 years prior to 1863. If you do the math, that takes you back to 1776. So 407 years is a fancy way to say the year of our country's independence. That was his dedication at Gettysburg, at the Gettysburg National Cemetery. That's amazing. Here, let's walk over here and we'll see one other interesting gravestone. You get all kinds of questions when you're on a tour. And I had a couple come on the tour one day and they said, we were over here yesterday and we saw this brown marker back here. And on the side of it, it says SEALs. Is this the Navy SEAL section? So I said, oh, I stopped the bus and we get out and we come over and take a look. It turns out that it's Mr. and Mrs. SEALs are buried here, and he was a helicopter pilot in the Vietnam War. So not the Navy SEAL section, just the SEALs family is buried here. But come around the other side and it says SEALs. So all they saw, they were thinking this was the Navy SEAL section.
You know, what's interesting to me about it is that this particular marker, this gravestone, is different than the rest of them.
So what I've been told is that you can apply for a variance to have any marker here as long as they approve it. And so obviously that one was approved. There are a couple others over here that are kind of interesting because they are bigger and bolder than any other markers here in the cemetery. And they've got the Marine Corps symbol on them. So the gentlemen that are buried here actually got approval to have these large markers that stand out bigger than any of the rest in the entire cemetery. Enlisted 1907. It's got the Marine Corps symbol there on the top. And this one also died in 1907, interesting, at the Naval Hospital, Port Royal. So that's one of the 3 military installations we have here in town. We've got the Marine Corps Air Station with the jets flying over all the time. We've got Paris Island where the Marine Corps recruits, train, and become Marines. And we've got a U.S. Naval Hospital here as well. So a lot of military veterans actually come to Beaufort to retire.
I always think of Marines as Camp Pendleton, but of course
they train here.
They train here. Yeah.
They train here. And actually Paris Island is the only training spot for women. Out in California, it's training only for men, and then here it's they have the men and the women train here. And that partly is probably part of the reason why they filmed the torture scene from the movie G.I. Jane here at Hunting Island State Park at the lagoon out there. It's right across from Parris Island, and even though it's called G.I. Jane, it was really kind of more of a Marine Corps recruit type of a situation, or Navy SEAL type of a situation.
This is a Scotsman here.
Look at that, born in Edinburgh.
Yeah, I used to live in Edinburgh.
I actually live on Edinburgh Road up in Columbia, South Carolina. And if I pronounce it Edinburgh, people don't know what I'm saying.
What you're talking about?
I have to say
funny.
Edinburgh. But I played some golf in Scotland years ago with my dad, and we drove through Edinburgh. They have the tattoo there every year. I'd like to go to that sometime.
It's an incredible event when it happens. It's at the top of the Royal Mile, up on the Esplanade, and it's right in front of the castle. And well, historically the Queen would always come, and at least for one day, and watch review the tattoo.
Right, right.
Which for everyone who's listening, it's basically all these different, military divisions put on, march and present themselves to the viewing public. It's an incredible show. It's usually right around when the fringe is.
Okay. They do a really great job of keeping the National Cemetery here maintained as well, and they contact us every so often to give us additional information so that we're up to date on what they're doing here.
Kelly Huddy Robinson says aloha. Rebecca just told me of this. Enjoy Beaufort. Come visit.
Hemingway's is one of those bars you go to after midnight.
Okay.
It is. It's a great little spot, and it's a kind of a hideaway, and a lot of fun to go there. We've got to wait because we don't have a lot of acceleration here in the golf cart.
About Beaufort National Cemetery.
1863.
Really powerful.
There we go. Now the light's turning. Here we go. All right, as we drive down to the waterfront, I'm going to tell everybody a little bit about the early 16th century Beaufort history. So in 1562, the French sea captain Jean Ribault sailed into the Port Royal Sound, landed on modern-day Parris Island, and started the French colony of Charlesfort, named after the King of France. 2 months later, he told his men he'd be back with supplies, and a year later, he had not come back for them. He took their only ship, and actually he was detained in the Tower of London along the way. And so a year later, his men mutinied, and with the help of the local Yamasee Indians, built a ship, almost a raft, tied together with clothing and that kind of thing. And they made it back to the English Channel where they got picked up, and a few of them didn't make it. At the very end of the journey, they had some cannibalism. And so that was the end of Charlesfort. 1565, Pedro Menendez of Spain sails into St. Augustine, founds America's oldest city. The following year, however, and this is not well known in American history books, and I'll explain in a minute why, 1566, Pedro Menendez sails into the Port Royal Sound, sees the remains of the French fort, Charlesfort, on Parris Island, and builds the Spanish colony. 1 year, Santa Elena was the original capital of the Spanish colony of La Florida, was right here in Beaufort. Now, 20 years later, after the founding, Sir Francis Drake of England sailed into St. Augustine, burned the city to the ground. That was known as Drake's Raid, and the following year was the last year of Santa Elena. By the way, on the left here is the new location of Pat Conroy's Literary Center. For any of you Pat Conroy fans, this is reopening in the new location on March 11th. So back to Santa Elena. So during the 21 years that it was the capital, Pedro Menendez, governor, had his family there, and over 400 people lived there. He even sent an overland expedition to find an overland route to Mexico, led by a Spaniard named Juan Pardo. And Juan Pardo went up to Morganton, North Carolina, started a fort there, which actually they're doing some excavation on right now. And then he made all the way to Knoxville, Tennessee before he turned around. The Indian resistance as well as the fact that he didn't feel like he was getting any closer to Mexico. That was the end of Juan Pardo. Now here we are on back on the high bluff where we started the walking tour the other day, and this is in the Big Chill. This is where the funeral procession went down the street just like we did, and then out at the bridge out there, the Prince of Tides final scene with Nick Nolte was filmed there, as well as the funeral procession from the Big Chill. Really a beautiful place here to see all the boats out in the river.
Gosh, this tree is out of control.
500 years old.
God.
So really beautiful part of town here, known as the High Bluff. This is where I park my vehicles for my tour company when the hurricanes are coming, because we know it'll never get flooded here. And this is the Beaufort Downtown Marina. This is where our tours usually leave from. And a lot of the boats here, people actually live out on the boats on a full-time basis. And the grass, again, out here is called Spartina grass. If you watch the Late Show, at the end of the Late Show, they actually and there's also a pocketbook company on Defusky Island. So this is the Beaufort Downtown Marina and parking lot. This was all part of a project that Henry C. Chambers, the mayor of Beaufort, put together in the 1970s. And they built all this parking here. They moved the marina further out. There had been a marina here. And then straight ahead is where they built the waterfront park. And it's a great park. We'll take a little walk through there. I think that'll be a good idea, just to check it out. Because really, people need to come to Beaufort and experience it. Our peak seasons are March, April, May, and September, October, when the weather is really beautiful. And the summertime, there's always a breeze here, so it's always nice in the summer as well.
Doesn't get as sticky as in Charleston.
I would say not. I would say that it's basically very breezy here, so it's not too bad. And I've been in Charleston where it is extremely sticky. We'll take a walk out here. I'll tell you a couple things about the waterfront park. How you doing?
I'm fine, thank you, sir.
So along here they have the history of Beaufort, different sections of Beaufort history. The statue of Thomas Hayward. I used to live on Hayward Street up in Columbia, South Carolina. And he was a soldier statesman, 1746 to 1809, signer of the Declaration of Independence. No wonder they called it Hayward Street. And we got all kinds of monuments. This is where we have the Water Festival, and we also, for about 3 years, we had the Lieutenant Dan Band weekend here. And we'll cut through here. So Lieutenant Dan, Gary Sinise, would come here with his band, and it would be a fundraiser, and he was awesome. This whole park would be filled with people. Now, as you look at the park, you would think that they filled this all in with solid dirt when they built it out from the restaurant part here, but actually, a lot of it's built on pilings with sinkholes, because underneath here there's water. It's actually kind of a dock. And so over the last couple of years, they've had underwater divers here who have swimming underneath where we are right now, and they have to feel the pilings, and the pilings are starting to crumble. And so they have
directly under our feet right now. Divers would swim underneath this space.
Exactly.
Oh my goodness.
Exactly. And they would feel around the pilings, and they would take underwater epoxy and fix the pilings, because, like I said, there were sinkholes forming all around here. So I don't know exactly how much of the park is over top of water, but it surprised me that any of it was, because it looks like it would be filled with dirt all the way out there.
Yeah.
Now here's the downtown swing bridge. Forest Gump was near the end of his cross-country run here.
Right.
Again, it's not a drawbridge. It rolls around on these 4 huge tires. I was under there when it was rolling one time in my boat, and it's a really cool bridge. We're hoping to keep it for many years to come. And then along here, this is the restaurant. Porches out on the back, so the city allowed them to expand the porch seating a few years ago. And so, as a matter of fact, if you look under there, There's Hemingway's.
Oh, no way.
It has no access from the main street. You have to walk around. Here, let's walk over there. Maybe we need to get a beer. I remember your beer story from earlier.
I've got some big driving in front of me, unfortunately. Today.
So paninis, they have panini sandwiches and a pizza oven. And then right buried over here is Hemingway's. I think maybe we'll call it a wrap once we get to Hemingway's.
Okay,
good?
that sounds
Or
like a great plan.
We can take questions, or maybe
Yeah.
I'll get a beer.
Yeah, I mean, maybe I'll have one too. It's good because my battery's running low, and I think we managed to shake off a lot of our followers with me stopping and starting.
Gotcha,
So.
gotcha. So there you can see the Hemingway's sign.
Ah, there it is. Very cool. Should we go in, grab a beer?
If you want to, sure.
Sure. Well, why don't we do this? Why don't we let everyone, not to throw cold water on people, but we've been going at it for, in this last filming, we've been going at it for 56 minutes.
Oh, there you go.
Which means that we had at least another like 20 minutes before we lost the first one, and
Exactly.
20 minutes after the second one. And the
I
rest
could
of
never
them.
keep up with Jim. 2.5 hours is incredible.
Jim's such a star. You guys are both such stars. I just want to say personally, thank you so much
Absolutely.
on this. You didn't mention the fact that you need to be donated to yet, and you need to, because guys, this doesn't come like easy. This is hard work, and everything that you donate goes to this gentleman right here. So please,
Well, I'll leave
please-
that up to them to figure that out.
Yeah, exactly. But also, you know, there's some experimentation today.
Sure.
We tried out something new. The golf cart experience is awesome. Like, it was really pleasurable. Really a great way to see the city.
And we're on the leading edge of this new filming technology too. So, or bleeding edge, we called it in the computer business.
Ain't that the truth?
The bleeding edge.
I'm so sorry for the misstarts and the stop and start. Shannon, will the full tour be combined into one? Yes, it will be. You just have to be patient on me for that, because I have to get my little sister in Portugal, Teresinha, to do it for me, because we have no budget. So, and she is very helpful in that, and very technical and intelligent, and an incredible freelancer for people that are looking for graphic design, especially video editing help.
Put in a plug. That's awesome.
Well, you know, I gotta, like, I'll put a link to her too. Anyone gets a link. Everyone gets a link. We had a couple. So Shannon, yes, we're gonna put that together. Joel, thank you so much. Vielen Dank. Bis zum nächsten Mal. Es wird uns immer eine Freude, hier zu sein. And Folly Dude, thank you. Christina from Walks of Charleston wrote to say that she was recently in Beaufort on Saturday.
Oh,
and that it was a very quaint town.
It's cool. It's a great place. I really love it here.
Yeah.
Folly Dude.
Well, guys,
Folly Dude sounds like a surfer too. I'm sure he's out there on his surfboard.
but he's a dog. You know he's got an awesome dog. You just know he does, you know. Hale Holzman, very, 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 very welcome. Shannon, I expect to see you again very soon. Guys, if you haven't already, you know, recognized it, we're going to be back again already tomorrow in Birmingham, where Ann Clemens is going to be giving us a tour, which will be
That is quite a long drive from here.
Yeah. It's transportation stuff.
Exactly. Exactly.
Great.
Well, thank you everybody for coming along with us on the golf cart tour. It was a great experience, and I really love this live technology. Thanks to Chris, I think we're going to be doing some live tours solo if we can figure out how to do it. Well, he says it's easy.
I mean, we spent an hour at lunch going through it. You got it. You know how to do this. You figured it out.
I'll figure it out for sure.
If not, Shohei can tell you how to do it from Kyoto. I'll get him on the phone with you, and then he'll sort you out.
And I'll have to get a new phone first. My phone just doesn't have memory on it.
It's your honor. You get to press the end button in the top
All
right-hand corner.
We'll see you all next time here in Beaufort. Thanks for coming along.
Thanks, guys. Oh, and there.